Well, we are now recording. Welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Giselle Ham. I am Program Director for the Strategic Visioning and Planning Program known as Mapping the Future of Your Community at the Illinois Institute for Rural Affairs. It's my pleasure today to introduce you to our session, Putting Local Leadership into Action, highlighting the wonderful mapping community of Dieterich, Illinois. And Dieterich is very special to the mapping program. They actually are our biggest repeat offender of our program. They originally went through our program back in 1992. So they were one of our first mapping programs. And then they followed up with a program in 98, one in 2004, one in 2011, and most recently in 2019. So they understand the importance of bringing the community together to come up with a plan for the community. And they understand the importance of doing updates. You know, you can't, just like a successful business, a plan that you did 50 years ago isn't going to be applicable now. So you need to update those plans. So they got that going on. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce our two presenters from Dieterich, Illinois. First of all, we have Alex Wright. Alex is one of the community champions in Dieterich. He's involved in a lot of different locations or organizations, excuse me. He's been president of the YB Next Effingham chapter. And I think that's a youth, is that a youth organization?
Yeah, it's kind of like a junior chamber.
Okay. As well, he's been a committee leader for the Dieterich mapping committees, Dieterich Community Development Corporation, and actually DCDC formed out of the first mapping program they participated in, and then the Dieterich Business Association. And we have with us Brittny Gipson, and Brittny is another community champion or rock star, actually. She's actually the village clerk and the economic development coordinator for Dieterich. She's also village TIF administrator, and she's a rock star grant writer. I must say that. And she's just involved in virtually everything in the community. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brittny and Alex.
All right, thank you, Giselle, for the introductions. We'll go ahead and share our screen here.
Everybody see that okay? Everybody good? Can you hear us all right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks again, Giselle. We are excited to be here today to share a little bit about our story for Dieterich, Illinois, and what makes us special. Dieterich is a small rural farming community that's been blessed with passionate business owners, residents, and volunteers that refuse to sit by and watch Dieterich dry up and blow away. As of the 2020 census, our population is 890 residents, with 44% of that population growth in just the last 10 years. Our progress and growth might seem like it was a quick and easy thing that lasted 10 years in these last 10 years, but I can assure you that was not the case. The fruits of our labor have been realized these last 10 years, started with projects and dedicated volunteers over 35 years ago. And Alex and I are here today to highlight just some of those projects and stories. The sense of community is very important in Dieterich, as in most other small towns across America. Having pride in our community during the late, having pride about the community where we live and work outwardly shows how we feel about our community. During the late 80s and 90s, it was evident that Dieterich was a community in decline. As a rural farming community, it was clear the large farm families with children that made up the good portions of our school system were going to age out of the school, and those kids were not going to return home to Dieterich to start their families. School enrollment was on the decline, and dilapidated and abandoned homes were becoming more prevalent, and without zoning or any economic development incentives in place to encourage future developments, the future of Dieterich was looking pretty grim. I grew up in a community on the opposite side of Effingham County, And I remember in the mid and late 90s as a high school athlete coming to Dieterich on the bus for softball and volleyball games. I remember thinking to myself, who would want to live here? If you would have told the teenage version of myself that Dieterich was going to be the place where I would choose to live, work, and raise my 3 boys, I would have said you're crazy. Lucky for us, the Dieterich Community Development Corporation, or DCDC for short, has played a vital part in the success of Dieterich since their inception in 1986. DCDC is a vehicle by which economic growth and community development efforts are addressed. DCDC was formed by Dieterich community members and business leaders that were concerned about the future of Dieterich and had a passion for seeing Dieterich grow and remain vibrant and successful. You'll hear me today talk about our community a lot. Yes, we are technically called the Village of Dieterich, but the area where our volunteers and concerned citizens reside don't stop at the physical borders. Our successes throughout the years are in large part because of those people who live in the rural and unincorporated parts of our school district have passion for seeing Dieterich prosper. DCDC got its start from a load of scrap metal one of the members donated for seed money. In the beginning years, they met with multiple colleges and regional planning commissions for planning assistance and advice to lay the groundwork for future projects. In '92, DCDC brought in the team from the Illinois Institute for Rural Affairs, and Dieterich was one of the very first mapping communities to participate in those sessions. These sessions are volunteer community members coming together for a series of long-range planning and goal-setting sessions that are facilitated by Giselle and her talented folks at WIU. These community planning sessions help create buy-in and identify community members that were invested in the success of Dieterich. We realize the immediate value and large benefits of these community planning sessions. And we have hosted mapping sessions, as Giselle stated earlier, several times over the last 20 years, with the last one being held the fall of 19. Some of the small activities DCDC conducted in their early days proved to have large impacts later on. Weekly DCDC meetings have proved to be a vital part of their success, helping keep the lines of communication open. 30 years ago, Dieterich struggled with barriers between the school board, village board, and community business leaders. Open communication and common goals were not common. Everyone had their own set of challenges and goals they were focused on. In an effort to try and break down those barriers, DCDC started hosting annual business recognition dinners to thank those existing businesses for their investment in the community, and also facilitating joint school board and village board dinner meetings. These meetings were great steps in fostering goodwill and cooperation from key community leaders. During these meetings, resetting old mindsets was a focus, shifting to the mentality that we are all in this together, and if we're going to be successful, we need to be one team and one goal. Never underestimate how breaking bread together can work to foster open communication. A Plum Proud campaign led by DCDC encouraged resident beautification and cleanup efforts, and everyone planted a plum tree in their yard. 88 trees in all were planted throughout Dieterich. Activities like this encourage residents to take pride in their property. Residents and businesses who take pride in their property help put the village's best foot forward, making economic development that much easier. One of the major economic development hurdles Dieterich was up against was the poor quality and short supply of potable water. Everyone knows that water is life, and if you don't have good water, you can't grow and remain a viable community. There were days when the Unit 30 school couldn't flush toilets due to the village wells being dry, and school had to close early. One of the veteran DCDC members loves to tell this story that when he brought his new bride back to Dieterich to live in the 70s, it was welcome home, sweetheart. Oh, but by the way, you need to drive 15 miles away to the neighboring town to do our laundry. You can't wash white clothes with Dieterich water or they'll be ruined. So in 1989, one of the DCDC founding directors helped form the EJ Water Cooperative to serve residents in rural Effingham and Jasper counties with good quality water. EJ has grown to become one of the largest rural water suppliers in the Midwest. 5 years ago, they upgraded the water plant that serves Dieterich to a softened water plant, making our water supply one of the best in the state. We are proud that EJ's headquarters are still located on Main Street in Dieterich, right where they got their start. EJ Water has grown to supply water to 12 counties in our region. In 1994, DCDC started the Dieterich Community Improvement Foundation, which is our community 501c3 nonprofit organization that almost all of our community charitable projects and events are ran through. This 501c3 foundation has proved to benefit Dieterich immensely since it began. Another one of the success stories for DCDC was writing a grant to build the Dieterich Community Medical Center in the 1990s. This medical center brought a much needed doctor to the community, and the center has grown over the years and expanded recently to include a telepharmacy. And in 1997, DCDC realized the need for new housing opportunities. New homes being built in Dieterich were a rare occurrence. If people wanted to move into Dieterich, there wasn't a supply of homes on the market or lots to build on. DCDC had researched ways to make residential development possible, and the idea of a tax increment financing, or a TIF district, was explored. The village board at the time wasn't convinced the TIF district was going to be the answers to their problems. So DCDC agreed to pay the consultant fees to form the first TIF district in Dieterich, with the promise that if the TIF worked and development started, the village board would be able to pay DCDC back for those consultant fees. Well, it worked. The village was able to pay DCDC back in 3 years. The first TIF district was formed in 97, the second in 2007, and the third in 2019. Dieterich's growth and progress over the last 25 years is a direct result of those TIF districts that have been formed. None of the large development projects that we are going to highlight today would have been possible without our TIF districts. We found that there's an extreme value in community planning meetings and goal setting sessions. Bringing together our community leaders, business owners, and residents to discuss and plan for our future has been vital to our growth and success. We were IIRA mapping participants in 92, 96, 98, 2011, and 19. In the 1990s, DCDC also worked with different departments at EIU and the University of Illinois to complete various feasibility studies and planning guides. In 2000, the Dieterich Village Board took the lead and created zoning, and in 2019, they went through the process of creating a comprehensive plan. This comprehensive plan document has proven very valuable when it comes to writing grants and successful grant applications. Coming soon in April, we're looking forward to being a part of a countywide mapping program led by Giselle and her team. The title for our sessions will be PAVE, which stands for Promoting a Vision for Effingham County. Part of the goal for our presentation today is to walk you through the different years of our mapping sessions and to highlight just some of the best practices and examples of successful initiatives and ideas that were born from our mapping. If you've ever been a part of a mapping session, you'll learn quickly that we talk about BHAGs, which in short is for Big, Hairy, Audacious Goals. One BHAG from our first mapping in 1992 was creating more job opportunities by attracting industry to Dieterich. So the idea for an industrial park was born. It did not happen overnight, but after several years of planning, the Zemballin Industrial Park was born. It's a public-private partnership development that brought much needed commercial and light industrial growth to Dieterich. The 13 businesses located here established a tax base that made possible all of the future projects inside our TIF 1 district. With the original Zemballin Industrial Park full and still a demand for industrial and commercial properties, the village board shifted their sights on another industrial park in 2018. This one located in our new TIF 3 district. The village purchased 40 acres of farmland and developed 23 shovel-ready lots zoned for commercial or light industrial uses. We have 8 of the 23 lots already reserved and 4 under contract. Businesses are expected to start breaking ground this spring. During our 1996 mapping, one of the BHAGs that was identified was the goal of quality, affordable housing opportunities. The need for housing was evident. For people that wanted to move to Dieterich, there was no place for them to buy or build. As school enrollment was on the decline, it was imperative that if we were going to save our school from consolidation and bring new residents to town, we had to have some place for them to buy a home or build one. The idea for the North Point subdivision was born. The newly formed TIF 1 district allowed the village to purchase land And in 2004, the village began as the developer for the North Point subdivision, with the first house being built in 2005. The first phase was just one street and 20 lots that were all just under a half acre each and priced at $5,000. To be honest, most people thought we were crazy for a small village trying to be a residential developer, but there were no developers knocking on our doors wanting to come to town. If anyone was going to start a development, it would have to be the village. By 2008, there was a need to add a second phase to the subdivision, and TIF 2 was formed for this development. 2014 began the fourth and final phase of North Point. In just over 15 years and 4 phases later, 92 homes have been built. School enrollment had made a turnaround, and the tax base for the future of Dieterich was changed for the better. Well, with North Point nearing full capacity, the demand for more residential lots was still there, and in 2018, the village purchased 18 acres of farmland and developed the Hartkey subdivision in TIF 3. This 38-lot residential development was an overnight success, with its ideal location next to our Unit 30 school. As of today, only 8 lots remain for sale. These lots sell for $4,000 each, and the buyer has 1 year to build their new home, and there are covenants and restrictions in place to ensure a cohesive neighborhood. The village loses around $30,000 on each lot we sell, but with the structure of how a TIF works, we are able to float our infrastructure loans until these new homes start generating real estate taxes. The goal for these developments is not to make a profit. Breaking even is our hope, but it's not all about the money. It's ensuring the viability of Dieterich for future decades with new homes, families, and kids in our school. Even through the pandemic, the momentum for Hartkey subdivision has remained, and the 2 pictures can show you just the difference in 2 short years. So during the 1998 mapping sessions, there were 2 different BHAGs that I'm going to highlight. One was a focus on our Liberty Park beautification, and the other was the focus on the overall downtown beautification. Dieterich has been fortunate to be able to capitalize on several state and federal grants over the last 15 years. These grants have been used for infrastructure, streetscape beautification, and pedestrian accessibility improvements. One thing that I hear often from people that are visiting or just new to our community is how impressed they are with our ADA accessible sidewalk network and our beautiful streets, lighting, and decorative boulevards. Never underestimate how the appearance of your community can attract new residents. I've heard multiple times from different people that they were just driving through, they fell in love with what they saw and wanted to move to Dieterich. As we continue to grow, we've learned a lot through our mapping sessions. And one of the things we've learned is that parks and recreation are very important to residents. And we just finished a project to revamp Liberty Park through a grant from IDNR. Liberty Park, pictured here, is adjacent to the Unit 30 school property. We were able to double the size of our old pavilion, and it's worked fantastically for the school to be able to use this pavilion to hold outdoor events instead of inside during the pandemic. Over the last few years, a lot of people have flexibility with their jobs to work from home. 30 to 40 years ago, people lived in certain places because that's where their jobs were. Nowadays, that's not the case. People choose to live where they want to live based on the schools, parks, recreation, and other amenities that the community has to offer. Dieterich is blessed that we are a fiber to home community, and we draw in a good percentage of those work from home professionals. They choose Dieterich because of the great reputation of the school and the amenities we can offer in a rural community setting. The 2 tennis courts pictured here weren't painted yet, but are now striped with tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts. The pickleball craze has hit Dieterich, and residents are loving the first ever pickleball league that our park district offered this fall.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. So the second half, I'm going to take over again. My name is Alex, and Brittany's a tough act to follow, but I'm going to do my best. So here we go. So kind of continuing on that downtown beautification thing, the Dieterich Liberty Memorial Park Veterans Memorial was a beautiful historical piece that we were able to add with as part of our downtown beautification initiative. The original structure seen here, rumor has it back in the day that that was actually how you drove into the park. You drove underneath this structure. So now today it's incorporated into this beautiful memorial. And if you can see there, it's got all the names of locals who have served in the armed forces. So it honors them there in that memorial. This is a great way to host services for Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and it is the centerpiece of our 4th of July celebration that we have every summer. Another initiative, part of our downtown beautification, was the Pocket Park and Village Mural. So Jamie Stang of Stang Arts painted this 60-foot mural back in 2020, and this was a great collaboration between some of the different groups in town, like the DCDC, DBA, and the Village Hall. This was during when COVID was in full swing, and we were trying to, make sure that the town had a good image and stayed fresh and had some new stuff going on. So this was a great way, COVID-safe way to express that. Now with it, you can kind of see before in the top right corner, it was just kind of an empty spot on Main Street there. But now we have this beautiful mural. We busted out the old concrete and poured some new concrete with park benches and picnic tables, great for little get-togethers. We hope to have food truck events out here, little entertainment events. And rumor has it that the building that this is painted on is going to be an ice cream shop in the near future. So another great addition to our Main Street. And the school is no exception. So, it's important, especially during COVID, to make sure people know that progress is happening. And when you have curriculum and staff administration changes that are in the right direction, that's not a visual, tangible, improvement. So therefore, it's important to keep the school's campus fresh and beautiful. This instills confidence in the staff and locals alike that the school is alive and well. So moving on to our 2011 mapping, one of the more important goals that we had in this mapping was to add needed infrastructure, early childhood care development, and continuing education opportunities. So one of the great things that we were able to bring to Dieterich was a Verizon cell phone tower. That greatly improved the call reception and had a lot more happy residents when their calls weren't dropping, and just everything went a lot more smoothly. We also updated the village website. New updates included online bill pay, a community calendar, public notices, and information on village programs and residential commercial opportunities, like our North Point, Hartkey subdivisions, and the industrial park. Another thing we did to kind of strengthen the ties with the community and in the interest of transparency and giving it that hometown feel is we created a Village of Dieterich Facebook page. This is a great way for quick and easy updates to remind everyone the village staff are locals just like them. This encourages good relations and interactivity. I will remind people that social media is a double-edged sword. It can help and it can hurt if it's not maintained and taken care of. Just like happy locals can interact, disgruntled locals can also comment, post, and depending on your privacy settings of your page. It's important to read up on addressing negativity on social media, but there's kind of an interesting story that recently we had the disgruntled locals had kind of put their distaste on our page on a few posts, and we were moved to see that other locals actually came to the aid of the village, and they commented and they said that it was just very touching to see that other locals that kind of came to our defense on something like that. So social media is a great tool if you can maintain it and make sure that you address issues that come up and all that. On to the next improvement. Due to the needs of the community, we started an after-school program, K through 6. This was an immediate success. It was profitable from year one. They're able to keep their kids there until 6 p.m. pickup. Almost 10% of the elementary population takes advantage of this program. And very soon we'll hope to hand this over to a new development that we're going to discuss later in this presentation. Montessori Kids Universe is a franchise to take the reins, and it's operated by a local couple, Brad and Jordan Jansen, And Jordan is actually a DHS alum. So this is kind of a special passion project for her to be able to work with the Dieterich School. Moving on with the continuing education here, the Dieterich Community Education Foundation provides a scholarship to every Dieterich High School senior who wishes to pursue higher education. This includes any higher education of their choice, such as any state accredited university, community colleges, and even trade schools. So this was a recent graduating class, so all these students should have an opportunity, thanks to the DCEF financially, to move forward with their education. On to our 2019 mapping, which was our most recent one. We got off to a wonderful start, a lot of participation, a lot of people hungry to help the town, and a lot of enthusiasm and energy, and then COVID struck. So luckily we had got all our meetings in and established our goals and our groups and had everything in place. So we soldiered on the best we could with some of the goals that we had set. The kind of most important of which so far that we have presentation on today was daycare providers and recreational events and activities. So on the activities side, Small Town Christmas was born. This is a great holiday event that brings a lot of young families from all over to Dieterich Park, which is, we're very proud of our park and the memorial and the pond and tennis court and all the upgrades that Brittny mentioned earlier. So this was a fun event to get exposure for not only for the town, but for the park and all its amenities in the school. It was just outside the school in our new pavilion. At the event, you could get pictures with Santa. We had a Christmas cookie workshop. We had kids activities, holiday drink tastings, and a live nativity and a petting, kind of doubled as a petting zoo. So the Santa house you can see off there to the left actually has a year-round use. So on the 4th of July, we'll use it for the events out there. If we have any fundraisers at the park, it's a great place to kind of store things and sell tickets out of. And it's also semi-portable, so we can kind of move it around the park as needed to accommodate the event. And then one of our more ambitious goals was the Dieterich Community Center. So 3 of the main needs that we addressed in our 2019 mapping was Dieterich needs a fitness center, a gymnasium, most importantly, a daycare. This is not only a need in Dieterich, but throughout the county, there's a high demand for daycare, and there's not a whole lot of providers out there to fill that demand. So the idea came up was why can't we get it all under one roof? So the Dieterich Community Center was born. This was a $3 million project that will house the fitness center, gymnasium, and daycare all under one roof. So this is kind of one of our more ambitious goals. It's going to be close proximity to the Dieterich School, huge benefit to the parents with both daycare age children and school age children for ease of morning pickup and drop off routines. The Dieterich students are also going to benefit immensely by having the ability to use this facility during the school day and for extracurricular activities. So this was, like I said, an ambitious goal. We needed to raise some capital and we need to make a big splash to raise awareness for the community center. So we got together and kind of brainstormed some fundraising ideas. And at a DBA meeting, a Dieterich Business Association meeting, we had a gentleman on that board who was originally from the Kentucky area. And he said, this would make a big splash. It's pretty up there and ambitious. But I buy St. Jude Dream Home giveaway tickets every year. So he thought, if we could do something like that for Dieterich, that would be a lot of exposure and a great event. And we kind of pitched it around, and we kind of sent it over to Brent Bonoff of B&E Developers, who he does this for a living. And as soon as it came to his attention, he was foaming at the mouth to get this going. He was, how quick can we get a lot? How quick can we get a hole in the ground? What's our floor plan? And I really got to commend him on really jumping on this thing and bringing it to life. We had countless donors of time, effort, material to make this all possible. And it was all executed by a core committee to kind of direct everything. But this was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, 1,700 square foot in Hartkey subdivision. So not only was it great exposure for the community center, it was great exposure for our budding new subdivision. We sold tickets for $100 each, or 6 for $500. We had 7,500 max tickets. We sold over 4,200, and we raised about $213,000 that went to the community center. And then very recently, the naming rights were acquired by Tom and John Wright's generous donation. Cedric Wright, their father, recently passed, and he was a great asset to Dieterich due to his countless hours of volunteer work and monetary donations to the community. To cement his legacy, as well as the Wright family, Tom and John Wright made a generous donation and renamed the facility the Wright Family Center. Tom and John are also avid volunteers and great ambassadors to the community of Dieterich. So to kind of wrap up our previous mappings, what worked for us? What were our best practices? These are guidelines that are more of a roadmap of our success, and we hope they inspire you to achieve your community's goals. We discovered that, you know, comfort is the enemy of progress. We need to make sure that we get out of our comfort zone and that we are moving forward. So changing mindsets and attitudes, things are never fine the way they are. It all starts with your attitude. Attitude changes your actions, and your actions change your environment. The original DCDC tagline, which Brittny found recently, kind of going through some old files, I read something in there that kind of struck me. It was energy, effort, and enthusiasm are the keys to the DCDC success and what success they've had. It takes work to stay where you're at. You know, sometimes achieving the goal is the easy part. Maintaining is just as important. I don't know if anyone out there has heard or seen the movie Hamilton, but my wife loves it, so I've seen it about 6 times now. And there's a line in that movie that George Washington says. He says, "Winning is easy, young man. Governing is harder." And of course, that he said that after the Americans won the Revolutionary War. But keeping their new country alive proved to be just as difficult as winning their independence. So after you accomplish that goal, it is vitally important to maintain it and make sure that it continues to be a success. Have a vision for what trends now will look like 10 years ahead. You always want to be looking ahead. Short-sighted goals are great for quick wins, but plan 10 years ahead when possible. It's really going to help down the road. Identify the key players for your town. For Dieterich, they're the Village of Dieterich, Unit 30 School Board, Business Community, the Dieterich Community Development Corporation. So you want to find a group of individuals from key businesses and institutions that will work together selflessly and form your own kind of DCDC that want to see that progress for the town. In the 10 years since the last census, this is just kind of some quick stats on to kind of gauge the success that Dieterich has seen. The population increased 44%. We're almost to 900 residents now. We're actually number 7 in the state for population growth rate, which is kind of a feather in our cap. The new subdivision has already added 147 kids aged 0 to 18 to the district. We continue to see this number to climb. 58 of those kids haven't entered the school system yet. The Dieterich Park District was able to start spring and fall soccer leagues for youth ages pre-K to 4th grade now, or grow to 4th grade, grow the youth baseball, softball leagues, and have added pickleball leagues for those 11 and up. And then this is kind of a quick timeline to show you some of the more key events as far as opening the TIF, the industrial park, and the second industrial park, the other TIFs, North Point subdivision, Hartkey subdivision, and you can see that after the establishment of the second TIF, we saw that school enrollment, which is a great measure of the health of the town, start to climb up, and we hope to see it continue to climb in the years to come. So what should you do? All towns are different and will take a different road to growth. However, there are some no-risk actions that we would recommend. Number 1, and this is very important, contact the Illinois Institution of Rural Affairs, mapping the future of your community program. This program is a game changer. It gets the people that you didn't even know were interested in helping the town involved, and gets them with other people that want to be involved. And it's amazing what you can accomplish when you put those efforts together. Don't worry about the profit. Consider using the municipality as a developer or instituting incentives that allow the for-profit developer and potential residents a win-win. Find your DCDC. Who are your community leaders that have a passion for growing your town? The ones that don't live in conventional boxes, the eclectic entrepreneurs. Collaborate, build relationships, remove egos. Don't worry about who gets the credit for what. Identify the groups that will move you forward and work together. Don't be afraid of state and federal grants. They are hard to administer, but they will change the game. Pay a consultant to help administer and learn from them. Embrace your connections. The world is small. Network. Lean on those you know and trust, those with the same goals. Know the benefits of your town and promote them. Have an advertising budget. Talk about the right things. Find advocates. You know, this is something that it's rare to find when other people will sing your praises. So it's important to celebrate your successes and make sure that people know all the hard work you're doing and the results that you're getting. And that'll inspire more to get involved. And then finally, check your cultural mindset. There's a difference between why us and why not us. And then lastly, building a community is different than building any other successful venture. Set goals, find the people with passion, acknowledge what you need to change, take the risk, and enjoy the ride. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you all for joining us. If we have any questions, we'll open it up to Giselle now.
Well, I had somebody, first of all, they gave you a good shout out. Nice work. You were really thinking big, but they also asked, and I think I know the answer to this, what portion of your residential and business success has been due to being 10 miles from Effingham? I see that as a real asset to town, but it took your leadership to leverage that. And that is one thing I know a lot of our communities see. Being near a larger community oftentimes can be a challenge, but I like how you guys actually turned it into an opportunity to build on. So if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, sometimes it is a challenge when you're competing against Effingham and all of their traffic counts and other, area businesses that they can promote from. But honestly, like, doing business in a small town is sometimes a lot easier. We've had people that have started business in Effingham and decided to grow and expand outside of Effingham and come to Dieterich, and they realize we have not nearly the red tape, I guess you would say, as those bigger communities. And it's cheaper to start with all of our incentives and development promotions we've run. We are really easy to work with, and it's much cheaper to get a business started in Dieterich than Effingham or any of the other larger surrounding communities in our area. So there's definitely a benefit to coming over to our smaller community. Financially upfront, the benefit for sure would be the number one reason a smaller community is better to start with.
Excellent. If you guys have questions, you can feel free to put it in the chat box, or if you can unmute yourself and you just want to ask Alex and Brittny any questions, now is the time to do it. Don't be shy. I know one of the big things I've seen with this community, and we don't see it in every community, they just have kind of the positive attitude, the can-do attitude. And we've seen through, doing our program and, over 100 communities now, 140 communities, that really, that is the big thing that makes a difference. A lot of people are like, well, we're just too small to see any progress. We're under 1,000 people. But I tell you, some of our most successful communities are actually the communities that are under 1,000 population. So I would not let that hinder you from going through a planning process, engaging people, and seeing your community be the best small community it can be. I did want to mention, I noticed in their the list of communities that have grown in population, actually the top one, Thompson, I think that is due to the prison finally opening. So, at least Dieterich, you didn't have to rely on the opening of a prison to increase the population. So
yeah, we actually went through and researched each of those other communities, and I would say that Dieterich is the most like traditional growth. Some of those other communities had other situations that, like the prison opening and all the influx of employees that contributed. So not to take away from them, but I will say that, our growth being the most beneficial wise to our community we'd probably be number one if it came down to that criteria.
No doubt. Do you guys have any questions about their community center project? I know many of our communities would love to build a community center like that. But it's like, where do you begin? And it's just pretty overwhelming to think about raising over $3 million. Did you have any other specific questions for them about that kind of real big project? Or the industrial parks, the small industrial parks that they have are also just amazing kind of examples. Everybody's so quiet this afternoon.
I will say that I don't think I mentioned it in the presentation, but on the community center, Brittny hit a home run with the park grant, which was a state issued $2.1 million grant towards this center. So as part of the kind of conditions of this grant, all this, the money that was awarded could go to the gymnasium and the fitness center, not the daycare.
Yes, our state and all their infinite wisdom will give you money to build recreation facilities, but not a daycare.
So we were still on the hook for quite a bit of money, as well as matching. How much do we have to match?
It was 20%.
Yeah, we had to match 20% of that grant, and of course, start from zero on the daycare center. This was just one great thing after another, all coming together to make this come to life. So hope to get started soon.
Yeah, a lot of and that's boots on the ground as far as mapping volunteers that were passionate about this project, getting in front of as many community groups and businesses that would let us in the door, and we beg for money. And when it's a great project that's going to benefit so many people, not just in the Dieterich community, but the impact this development will have is going to reach even out past Effingham County. We've had so many people already contact us for like youth sports programs and travel teams, and the daycare, especially people from surrounding counties that happen to be driving through Dieterich on their way to work in Effingham, can't wait for this to open. So it's a really special project, and the support from our community and surrounding communities for this has just been phenomenal. If you find a project that enough people are passionate about, it's a game changer to get people's buy-in and willingness to go help you raise money for it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, as we've been working with communities, we've noticed the past, probably 5 years, that one of the top goals that we see coming up is related to childcare as well as recreation. But both of those two kind of have now been showing up more and more often in our mapping processes. So it's just interesting how things evolve and change. And so this is a big issue. I did just post that link to the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Park and Recreational Facilities Construction Program grant. So you can check that out via that link. I've also shared with you some other links from Dieterich, just as they were talking about some of the projects, and you have Facebook pages for the community center and the village as well.
Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, what we have? Oh, I see, Steve. I would like to give a heartfelt tribute to Cedric Wright, Delbert Munt, and Ernie Garb. who were among the earliest mapping pioneers in Dieterich. Yes, those guys had all known each other from their youth, loved the town, wanted to set a course for future growth, and were phenomenal fundraisers locally and in Washington, D.C. And I must say, Delbert, I've been with the Institute since 2006, so I had the opportunity to participate in 2011 and actually 2004, I think I helped with, because I was actually not mapping manager, but I was a part of the Institute then. So 2004, 2011, and 2019, and actually Delbert was at all three of those. I know he passed away since then, but just so passionate, all of them. So absolutely.
Yeah, and yes, we are blessed. It's all about finding the right people. There are people in every community in America that have passion, and you just have to go out and find them and give them opportunities to show up and be present and to work together. So yeah, we're blessed with some of the best, and we're still lucky to have Ernie with us. Alex and I were just at our DCDC. Alex and I are both a part of it, and we still meet at noon every Wednesday. And Ernie is still there, sat beside him today. So it's really awesome to have all of that knowledge. Whenever Alex and I were preparing for this presentation, digging out Delbert's, whenever Delbert passed away, his family brought me his file cabinet and all of the cool, I could just sit for days and read through all of the just things that we didn't even begin to touch on a day, that went on behind the scenes to get us to where we're at today. So, but yeah, Alex and I are part of DCDC and are blessed to still be able to pick Ernie's brain every week.
That's awesome. And I think he was the one that had the ice cream.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So I hope somehow you're going to have some kind of dedication to him in that ice cream place.
Yeah.
I think that would be awesome.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, showing the photos, and that might be if Delbert had any things that you might be able to post in that ice cream store, that would be great.
Yeah.
And what I loved, participating with helping them with the 2019 mapping, what was cool was, this Dieterich Community Center came up as a BHAG. And it was interesting, before we were done with the process, they already had these drawings of what this community center is going to look like and everything. I mean, I knew they were going to make it happen just because before we even finished the sessions, they already had drawings of it, at the program and everything. So pretty awesome, just an awesome community. So this is your last call for questions or comments, guys, before I close us down.
We're happy to share this presentation with anyone that would like a copy. Yeah. So.
Excellent. And the recording will be available as well. I know it'll take a little bit to get it prepared, but we will be sending out links for the recordings of these presentations as well. So you could share it with your other community members too. And I do know from experience that both Brittny and Alex are more than happy to talk to you. So if you ever want to follow up with Alex and Brittny on if you have any questions, they're always happy to talk. Oh, here we go. We have a comment. In changing mindset and attitude, what challenges did you face, if any, Brittny and Alex?
Well, I'm the youngest member. I don't mean age-wise, I mean the most recent member of DCDC. So I think the DCDC was kind of born out of necessity, where at the time of its founding, this part of the town administration didn't talk to the school, and this, the school didn't talk to it was just a lot of butting heads and had their own interests. And the DCDC kind of pulled like-minded people from these institutions that all work toward a common goal. So there's some people that just won't change their attitude, and there's nothing you can do about that. There are people that will, and it's important that you find them, but it's important to find the people that want to help the community. And from day one, they are a part of that vision and that goal.
Yeah, and one of the stories that Ernie and the other founding members of DCDC like to tell was the village administration back in the days before EJ Water. They didn't think we had the village is fine. We don't need to grow. We're fine the way we are. Our water's fine. I mean, and it wasn't. And that's finding those people, yes, to go around those groups and yeah, find a common goal to be passionate about, and work around those certain groups so that aren't on your side always and don't see the bigger picture. So there's a lot of animosity in the beginning for when DCDC was trying to form and get those goals and change things. And change is not always easy, and people don't always agree with it. But generally, it's for the best. And hopefully, people, once they see the good and the true intent, will get behind you.